proposal to the central government. In that case, it means, because according to the current policy, if the young couples, both of them are single child themselves, they can have 2 children. So that means, because at this moment in China, we already got in urban area, we got 100 million single child in China. So about 7% of Chinese are single child. So this single child, actually, we have done some kind of research. We have still in the process of doing this research. How this single child will reshaping China's future, will reshaping China's future society. Because usually we will say this single child, they have the individualistic, self-centered. They have less family responsibilities. If this generation, they get the power, what will be for China? And what will this impact on the global development? So this, I think this future implications are huge. But on the other hand, we see that during this kind of the last year, the earthquake, we found a lot of these kind of single children. So they worked voluntarily to help the poor and help the victims of the earthquake. So then, now, as a social scientist, we found that this kind of single child generation, they have the social responsibilities. They just don't want China, don't want to follow what they should do. They just want to, if they want to voluntarily, they want to do something, they will do that. But they just don't like to obey the order, obey the authorities. So that's maybe the major, the behavior feelings, the behavior patterns of this kind of single child generation. So for me, sometimes I make a joke that maybe China's democracy will be achieved when this generation reached the 30s or 40s, because they do not believe any authority. They have to use the voting systems to solve their quarrels, solve their dispute. Maybe that's the good time for China to democratize, for whole China.
It's a nice connection between demography and politics.
Yeah, maybe, I'm not sure. So that's, when you mentioned that it's going to sacrifice one generation. So that's, I think, that actually the one generation means the current single child, the parents of single child. Actually, now, just before I come here, I attended the meeting, internal meeting in China. The theme of that meeting is that the Chinese government would try to relax this one-child policy in several provinces. Then we just discuss whether we should relax the policy in 1 or 2 provinces, or we should relax the policy in 10 provinces, or in which way we should relax the policy. One of the major arguments is that at this moment in the urban area, if both of the couples are single child, they can have 2 children. Then one of the modifications is that, just like in your case, because you have another sister, if you married a single child, or if your wife is a single child, then you can have 2 children. So that's some kind of modification of the future policies. So in general, I think that in China, because population issues dislike the economic policy, when you have the financial, the rescue package of the economy, so you invest money, then in half a year you solve the problem. But if you, in population issues, you have the population momentum. So you have these things, you have to think in the long term rather than the short run policy changes. So that's many Chinese scholars, including the mainstream stream of the government policy thinking, is that we will gradually modify the policy. Then gradually, I think in 20 years' time, universal 2 children policy, or finally, entirely get rid of the government control of the people's fertility, people's reproductive behavior. So that's, I think, for me, I really advocate this kind of the government relaxed control. But I realize it's almost impossible at this moment in China. But so we have to keep our finger crossed. In 20 years' time, China will get rid of the government control on population issues.
We're having a question. Who was first? Okay.
Yes, hello. I am Celeste from Guatemala. I'm an ISS student in the Rural Livelihoods program. You mentioned in your presentation that urbanization is treated now as a development strategy. I was wondering if you could comment if there are any measurements, if it has proven effective for poverty alleviation, and if you can elaborate a little bit on the situation of rural livelihoods vis-a-vis this demographic characteristics of China.
Yeah. In general, I think that before the economic reform, or even during the economic reform, actually the China's agriculture basically is a survival economy. So the peasants, the farmers, they work on the farmland. They can only, I think, get sufficient to eat, and get a very limited cash. So that's the basic situation of China's survival economy in rural areas. I'm not sure whether you agree or not. So then the economic reform allowed or encouraged the surplus labor in rural area move to the urban areas. So in rural areas, even we said the migrant labor in China's urban area, they were discriminated. Their salary is low. They do not get a social welfare benefit. But even with this kind of situation, their monthly salary is more or less equivalent or higher than what they can earn in rural areas for the whole year. So in that case, remittance sent to the countryside, to the remote the countryside, becomes a major financial resources for the poor rural areas. So, and also, I regarded the rural-urban migration is an enlightenment movement. The society paid very little money, investment on that. And the government invested very little on this kind of migration process. But actually, this kind of 140 million migrants, rural farmers, they're working in urban area. They just open their mind. They learn the skills in the urban settings. I think this greatly improved, enhanced China's quality of the labor force. So in that case, I think that many of these kind of migrants, when they earn some money, then return to their countryside. They open their small business, or they become the entrepreneurs, and they develop their business. So this, I think, has really helped China in rural areas to develop. But on the other hand, of course, we have the negative impact of this kind of young labor force migrant to the urban areas. So this makes the rural labor force becomes all the able-bodied, all the high-quality labor force move to the urban area. What remains in the rural area is elderly persons, is the handicapped persons, or many are just women. So this makes China's agricultural production stagnated over the last 10 years. So China reached the peak of the agriculture products in the year 1998. So only we reached that peak last year, we reached the peak again. So over the last 10 years, all the grain production is declining. So this partially is a negative impact of the migrants to the urban areas. Then another thing is linked to that. When I said the aging will be a serious problem in China's urban areas, but this migration, later these migrants may settle down in the urban areas. This will make the aging problems in rural area even worse and worse. But of course, sometimes when we talk about this kind of the rural-urban separation, or this kind of the Chinese society is divided, we can say, in terms of rights, definitely it's not good, not the equality for everyone. But in terms of the society management, or in terms of the public policy, maybe they have some kind of positive impact on that. For example, with this kind of the economic downside, so because these migrants, so they have they do not hold the permanent status in the urban area. So they relatively easy for the government to encourage these kind of migrants return to their countryside without a huge compensation for that. So this makes China can recover from economic crisis relatively easy compared to many other countries.
Can I briefly respond
please.
to that, even though I should not maybe? But you were also saying that the distinction you have this rural and urban household registration.